The 2026 NFL Draft is about to reshape the entire landscape of professional football, and the Chicago Bears are standing at a crossroads that could define the next decade of this franchise. Welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your most trusted source for comprehensive analysis, breaking updates, and exclusive insights on everything happening with our beloved Chicago Bears. I'm bringing you critical information today about draft strategy, defensive philosophy, and a decision that's going to impact how we build this team moving forward. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to break down could completely change how you think about the Bears' path to contention. Something extraordinary is happening in this draft cycle, and Bears fans need to understand the full context before we get to the specific moves Chicago is evaluating. The 2026 class is loaded with elite defensive talent coming out of the college ranks, and teams are making aggressive moves to secure cornerstone players at premium positions. We're seeing a draft where the emphasis on building championship-caliber defenses is driving decisions across the league, and the Bears are right in the middle of that strategic thinking. Let me paint you the picture of where we are as a franchise. The Bears have made significant strides on offense. We've got young talent developing, and we've shown flashes of being a competitive team. But here's the reality that every Bears fan needs to confront. Championship teams are built on dominant defenses, and while we've improved in certain areas, there are still positions where we need to add elite talent if we want to compete with the best teams in the NFC. The front office understands this, and they're approaching this draft with a very specific philosophy about how to construct a defense that can win in January. Now, before I tell you exactly what the Bears are planning to do with their first-round selection, I need you to understand the domino effect that's happening at the top of this draft. Teams are moving aggressively for quarterbacks, as expected, but the real story is how quickly elite defensive players are flying off the board. We're talking about game changers, difference makers, players who can transform an entire unit. And one position in particular is getting serious attention from teams that understand modern NFL defensive construction. Safety has evolved from being an afterthought position to being absolutely critical in today's pass-heavy league. You need safeties who can cover, who can play in the box, who can erase mistakes, and who have the football IQ to be essentially a quarterback of the defense. The best safeties in the NFL right now are commanding massive contracts and changing games every Sunday. Teams know that if you can get an elite safety prospect in the draft, someone who can do everything at a high level, you're talking about a player who could anchor your secondary for the next decade. Ohio State has produced that exact type of player this year. Caleb Downs is the name that's been generating buzz throughout the scouting community, and for very good reason. Downs isn't just another safety prospect. He's a do-it-all defensive back who can play multiple roles, who has elite instincts, who processes information at NFL speed already, and who brings the kind of versatility that defensive coordinators dream about. When you watch his tape, you see a player who's equally comfortable playing deep safety, coming down to cover slot receivers, blitzing from different angles, and making plays on the ball. That's rare. That's special. That's the kind of prospect who can change your defensive identity. The question for the Bears has been whether Downs would even be available when we were on the clock at pick 25. And here's where the draft landscape gets really interesting, because teams ahead of us are evaluating their needs, looking at the board, and making calculations about which positions they need to address immediately versus which they can wait on. The mock draft scenarios that are circulating show us exactly how the dominoes are falling, and it's telling us a lot about where elite safety prospects like Downs are going to come off the board. Looking at the top 10 picks, we're seeing quarterbacks going early as expected. The Jets are trading up to get their quarterback of the future. The Raiders are taking a swing at the position. Teams are securing their franchise passers. But then something happens at pick number 10 that Bears fans need to pay very close attention to, because it impacts our entire defensive strategy and how we approach building this roster. The Los Angeles Rams, picking 10th via a trade with Atlanta, are in position to grab the best available defensive player, and they're staring at an elite safety prospect who's too talented to pass up, Caleb Downs at pick 10 to the Rams. That's the scenario that's emerging from the most credible draft analysts, and it makes perfect sense when you understand how the Rams construct their defense. They value versatility. They value players who can play multiple roles, and they've shown a willingness to invest premium picks in defensive backs who can be difference makers. Downs fits that profile perfectly, and at pick 10, he represents incredible value for a player of his caliber. The Rams are getting a safety who can contribute immediately, who can be a cornerstone of their secondary for years, and who brings the kind of football intelligence that translates to winning games. Now, here's why this matters so much to the Bears. With Downs off the board at 10, and with other elite defensive players coming off the board throughout the first round, Chicago has to recalibrate their approach. We're not getting Downs. That's not happening unless we made some massive trade-up that would cost us future assets, and that doesn't align with our long-term building strategy. So the question becomes, who do the Bears target at 25 that addresses our defensive needs, that fits our scheme, and that represents the best value available? Looking at the board as it's projected to fall, the Bears are going to have options. Multiple edge rushers, cornerbacks, and interior defensive linemen will still be on the board. The decision comes down to which position provides the most immediate impact and which prospect has the highest ceiling. And this is where the Bears' defensive philosophy under our current coaching staff becomes really important. We run a system that emphasizes pressure on the quarterback, that values length and athleticism on the edge, and that needs players who can win one-on-one matchups consistently. Edge rusher is the premium defensive position in today's NFL outside of maybe cornerback. If you can't generate consistent pressure on opposing quarterbacks, you're not winning championships. It's that simple. The best teams in the league all have elite pass rushers who can wreck game plans, who force quarterbacks into bad decisions, and who create turnovers through pressure. The Bears need to add to that position group if we want to compete with teams like the Lions, Vikings, and Packers in our own division, let alone the elite NFC teams we'd face in the playoffs. At pick 25, there's an edge rusher prospect available who checks a lot of the boxes the Bears are looking for. Romelo Height from Texas Tech is a player who brings legitimate length, who has shown the ability to bend around the edge, who has developmental upside, and who fits the athletic profile that modern NFL edge rushers need. Height isn't the finished product yet. He's got areas of his game that need refinement, technical aspects that will improve with NFL coaching, and physical development that will come with an NFL strength and conditioning program. But the raw tools are there, the athletic ability is there, and the ceiling is high enough that the Bears view him as a worthwhile investment at this spot in the draft. Height gives Chicago another developmental pass rusher to pair with the existing pieces on the defensive front. He's got the length that allows him to keep offensive tackles at distance, the speed to threaten the edge, and enough versatility to play multiple roles in our defensive scheme. Is he going to be an immediate Pro Bowl player as a rookie? Probably not. But that's not what you're expecting at pick 25. You're expecting a player with legitimate upside who can contribute on special teams immediately, who can rotate into the defensive line, and who can develop into a starting caliber player within a year or two. Let me be very direct about something. Some Bears fans are going to be disappointed that we didn't get Caleb Downs. They're going to see him go at 10 to the Rams and think we missed out on a special player. And they're not wrong that Downs is special. But draft strategy isn't about lamenting the players you couldn't get. It's about maximizing the value of your pick based on who's actually available when you're on the clock. Height at 25 represents solid value for an edge rusher with his athletic profile and upside. That's good drafting, That's how you build a sustainable winner. I'm also optimistic about what Height could become in our system. The Bears have shown they can develop defensive linemen. We've got good coaching on that side of the ball. We've got a strength program that can add functional muscle to his frame, and we've got veteran players who can mentor him on the nuances of playing edge rusher in the NFL. Give Height 2 years in our program, and I genuinely believe he could be a 10-plus sack player who becomes a legitimate starting edge rusher. That's the trajectory we're hoping for, and it's realistic based on his athletic tools. But here's the broader point I want to make about this draft. The Bears are building something sustainable. We're not mortgaging the future to win now. We're adding pieces that fit our timeline, that address real needs, and that can grow with the core we're developing. Height fits that model perfectly. He's young, he's got upside, and he's playing a premium position where good players are extremely valuable. Even if he doesn't become an elite pass rusher, having a solid rotational edge who can give you 6 to 8 sacks per year is valuable in today's NFL. So here's my question for you, Bears fans. How do you feel about the Bears taking Romelo Height at pick 25? Are you disappointed we didn't trade up for Caleb Downs, or do you think edge rusher was the right position to address? Do you believe Height has the potential to develop into a starting caliber player? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely want to hear how the Bears faithful are feeling about our draft strategy. The reality is that building a championship defense requires hitting on draft picks, developing young players, and making smart decisions about positional value. The Bears are doing all of that. We're not reaching for names, we're not panicking about missing out on top 10 talents, and we're not sacrificing future assets for immediate gratification. We're building the right way, and Height is another piece in that puzzle. Combined with the other defensive players we're developing, the free agents we might add, and the scheme we're running, we're creating a unit that can compete. If you want to stay on top of every development with the Bears as we approach draft night, you need to be subscribed to Bears News Fan Report. I'll be breaking down every pick, every trade scenario, and every strategic decision that affects this franchise's future. Hit that like button, share this with every Bears fan you know, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with more exclusive analysis, more insider perspectives, and more comprehensive coverage of everything happening with our beloved Chicago Bears. Bear down, let's build something special.